Shabbat Shalom, and just Shabbat Shalom. As the Chagim fade into the background, we are left with just Shabbat Shalom, which is enough. So, as most of you know, we are a synagogue. Now, there are many different ways to define a synagogue. You can define a synagogue as a Beit Tefillah, which is the way most people consider a synagogue, a house of prayer. Many people will define a synagogue as Beit Midrash, as a house of study. And, of course, generally, when we think about it, we will all acknowledge that it is a Beit Kinisa, that it is a house of gathering. You may recognize that second word, Kinisa, from the word Knesset, the same word that is used for the Israeli parliament and from the same root. But, of course, there is another, more technical definition of a synagogue, which is a 501c3 religious institution. And that is an important definition in this particular country, in the United States. So what is a 501c3 religious institution? Anybody up on their recent tax code? Well, that it is a non-for-profit religious organization with a non-political goal. Now, that is a very important distinction, that last part of it, because in the U.S. there are certain trade-offs that take place. That is to say, we, as a religious institution, and recognized as one under the U.S. tax code and legal code, we get certain perks. There are certain things we don't have to comply with. For example, anti-discriminatory practices of a type we are allowed to make. Now, you may be thinking, what, the U.S. government allows us to practice discrimination? Well, yes. For example, when you wish to hire a rabbi, you get to demand that the rabbi be Jewish. That's not considered to be illegal. On the other hand, if you were hiring someone to be a waiter in your restaurant and you demanded that the waiter be Jewish, you would be up against certain labor laws of demanding a non-significant characteristic as a significant position or significant determinant of the position for the hire. In Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam, the U.S. government says, look, we've got this thing called the First Amendment. We are not going to force you to comply with all of our general commercial and public rules in your pursuit of your mission as a religious organization. So therefore, Christians can hire Christians for Christian-specific activities. You don't get to make a distinction for who your janitorial staff is, for example, as that is not normally considered part of the religious mission. But for somebody that is a school teacher in a religious institution, for somebody that is clergy in a religious institution, and for many other types of positions, the U.S. government says, of course, you are allowed to pursue your mission as you wish. And this has been very important as a way to prevent government interference in how we conduct ourselves as Jews or as members of other religious faiths. Everybody's on the same page, I hope. But the U.S. government does say, but as a special 501c3 religious institution that has a non-political agenda, we are going to ask you to refrain from overt political activism. That there is another side of this. We're going to stay out of your business if you do not act like a political party, if you do not act like a political organization, which is lobbying or for a particular measure or endorsing particular candidates or parties. You can still talk about general issues that are important to the mission of your faith, but don't go around endorsing candidates. Don't go around saying, vote this way, vote that way on proposition this or the other. Talk in general, yes, but political activity, which is a technical term in the U.S. legal code, that you must refrain from. Now, not all of our co-religionists or other faiths abide by those regulations, and to be honest, the U.S. government has been more than lenient, in my opinion, in tolerating many 501c3s crossing that line, which is an abuse of their status and abuse of their position and their privileged position within our overall system. But I'd like to argue why it's important to maintain it nonetheless, because there have been many people, especially in this contentious election season, that have asked me to speak as the rabbi of Temple Israel, not just as Joshua Neely, who happens to work here, but as an official member of this congregation and speaking on behalf of it, to endorse candidates or to speak explicitly with regards to political issues that have a sharp partisan divide. And there have been people who say, Rabbi, why don't you tell people from the Bema who they should be voting for and what they should do in the upcoming election? Yeah. Well, I can see from some of your faces that some of you would probably not welcome that activity. And there's a couple reasons why. The first is most obvious, which is that we have seen in other countries where there isn't a firm separation between religious activity and political activity, a corruption of both by both. That is to say, various religious interests, when they step into the realm of politics, will often corrupt politics with the mantle of self-righteousness, sanctimoniousness, and ideas of some salvational purity test for promoting a political interest, which will distort the normal conversation regarding policies and procedures that democracies should engage in. That is to say, religion makes a horrible mess when it comes to trying to negotiate policies among a diverse, heterogeneous community. And most democracies have multiple opinions, and trying to make your religion the defining measure of how those opinions should be shaken out and turned into public policy makes a very bad system for defining that policy. But the opposite also occurs. That is to say, when those in the political sphere wish to mobilize or weaponize the religious institutions within their country, it tends to force, or at the very least strongly encourage, those religious institutions and religious personas to debase themselves in searching for political gain, searching for economic benefit, in short, corruption. After all, if I can deliver my congregation of X number of votes to you, Mr. Representative, you, Mr. Senator, what are you going to give for me and my constituents? What money is going to come our way, or indeed my way, so that I will be able to feel justified by your level of commitment to my community? And, perhaps a nice seat on an important and fancy board in the local community, preferably one that has some arduous foreign travel. That would show me that you truly believe in my community, and we can see where this goes. There's a corruption of both the religious institutions as well as the political institutions when that membrane between the two of them becomes, well, non-existent. But that being aside, I'd like to talk about the more local implications. Because yes, this would be a tragedy for our country, this would be a tragedy for our faith, but it would also be a tragedy for Temple Israel. That is to say, in the microcosm of each individual 501c3 religious institution, you would end up creating not a community, but a political clubhouse. Because if the rabbi comes up onto the bema and says, you must vote for candidate X or else you are a bad Jew, well, those who are unconvinced in the rightness of candidate X are probably going to reconsider their participation in that community. Now, some may think, well, that's perfectly fine. If they're not on board with what we think is right, we should show them the door. Well, I am more than happy to let someone know if their views regarding Judaism cross beyond a certain threshold, that perhaps they will find a more comfortable community to be part of other than our own. But in general, I want to make sure that within our community, we are actually a community. And a community is not meant to be an echo chamber. A community is not meant to be one great homogenized blob of humanity from which there is no differences of opinion. A community is meant to have diverse, often divergent, and often passionate disagreement regarding what is the right thing to be done within the community and within the broader sphere of our country. And it must live with that. We do ourselves harm, irreparable harm as a community, if we think that there should be a particular political ideology that is associated with our religious institutions. This is a place that is meant to bring together all of the people that are comfortable within our community, regardless of who they are going to vote for coming up very soon, or perhaps you've already done your early voting and you've already done so. You should be able to sit in a pew in front, behind, alongside of, to the left or the right, of people who are on different ends of the political spectrum from you, to the left and to the right, and to still call them a member of your community, to still want to shake their hand and to wish them Shabbat Shalom, to still go to their house when it is time for Shiva, to still be able to dance at the celebration of their wedding or a child's bar mitzvah. A community should not be defined by the ballot box. Our religious institutions is here to answer a higher question of worth, of meaning, of purpose, of faith. And as much as those things can influence how we behave when we vote, they should not define and distinguish ourselves from each other to such an extent that we cannot sing together, that we cannot worship together, that we cannot learn together. Some of you may remember that a while ago we had a special program on Wednesday evenings called We Need to Talk that was trying to foster more conversation along this line so that we could recognize the shared humanity and shared participation within our community. We're going to be resuming this program starting this coming Wednesday. So if anybody would like to come along at 7 o'clock on Wednesday to the office door, you'll be welcome to come in and we can have a free, open, and completely unrecorded conversation regarding how people are feeling, questions they may have, comments they wish to make. Now, this is not meant as a time for you to advocate for a particular candidate or a particular political posture, but it is meant as a time to simply voice an opinion you may have and to listen to others and hopefully have the pleasant, civil, but meaningful exchange of ideas. That has been the bedrock of Judaism for at least the last 2,000 years of recorded history, and much longer, I believe, as well. Just that sort of attitude and culture doesn't come out of nowhere. So hopefully you'll join me. This coming Wednesday we'll start. Obviously we'll be going through the election season and see how things go, and we'll continue going probably up until around Thanksgiving, because one way or another I have an opinion. I have an epiphany that after Election Day, the political disagreements within our national conversation will not be resolved. That there will still be discussions regardless of what happens on that particular day, regardless of who is elected to president or any other office within this country. The conversation is going to continue, and more than ever, we need to have a proper, safe, and loving place where we can have that conversation. And we all know the internet's not that place, and cable TV is not that place. Let's make this that place. Shabbat Shalom.